Imagine this. You're standing in the bustling agora in ancient Greece, and you see people debating, talking about science, about nature, about politics. And in the middle of all this stands one man which goes to people and asks a deceptively simple question. How do you know that? This man is Socrates, one of the most influential philosophers of all time. Over 2000 years ago, he developed a method to be used in discussion in order to expose flawed thinking. In this video, we're diving into the Socratic method. We will see how this method helps us to cut through the noise, to uncover biases, and to survive into this social media age that we're facing. Let's break down what the Socratic method is, how it works, and how it is more relevant than ever. At the core of the Socratic method is what is called the elenchus. This is a process of cross-examination where Socrates tests and refutes the different proposals of the counterpart. The discussion typically begins with Socrates asking about a general concept such as what is justice or what is knowledge. The person he questions then gives a definition, and Socrates starts from there to try to start dissecting it to understand if it is a fair definition or not. The goal of the elenchus is to reveal weaknesses in the argument or even contradictions. By doing so, Socrates shows that many beliefs that people hold are actually less solid than they think. Once Socrates reveals contradictions or weaknesses in an argument, he goes into second gear, in the dialectic phase, where the conversation becomes much deeper. And the goal of this dialectic phase is a real collaboration with the partner in discussion, to try to understand what are we even talking about. So this time, it's not about refuting the idea, it is about trying to develop a coherent understanding of the topic. Plato, which was one of the students from Socrates, saw this process of dialectic as going from mere beliefs to real knowledge. So it is really giving a strong ground to what we think and creating knowledge out of it. So while the elenchus clears the ground, the dialectic is here to construct something more sustainable. So now let's see a specific example to give a better idea of the Socratic method. And one of the best examples to see the Socratic method in action comes from the discourse called Apology by Plato. In this text, Socrates has an exchange with Meletus, and Meletus is accusing him to corrupt the youth, and therefore he wants Socrates to be judged for his crime. Of course, Socrates will use the elenchus and the dialectic to try to address this charge. So to start, Meletus accuses Socrates to corrupt the youth while other citizens improve them. Socrates starts the elenchus by trying to clarify, and he asks who exactly is harming the youth and who is benefiting them. And Meletus believes that only Socrates is corrupting them, everybody else is improving them. Of course, Socrates challenges that and say that how could it be that only him harms them? He does something more. He then goes into asking if someone can harm themselves intentionally. And then when Meletus says no, Socrates takes the opportunity to accuse him of contradicting himself. Because if that's the case, Socrates harming the youth will simply create a youth which will have a bad impact on society and therefore on Socrates himself. So since Socrates knows that, he wouldn't do it because it would be harming himself intentionally. That is a weird argument, but that's Socrates. But anyway, we can see the elenchus in action. Socrates clarified his position and then tried to pinpoint a contradiction in it. Which brings us to the second phase, the dialectic. To do that, he will try to refine the concept of improvement, corruption, and responsibility in collaboration with Meletus to try to redefine this whole topic. Socrates wants to find out what it is to influence others, because that's what he's accused of. And at this time, the goal is not to show the error in the thought process of Meletus. It is rather to try to dive deeper and trying to understand more deeply what those concepts actually are. That being said, Meletus in the end manages to convince the jury and Socrates is sentenced to death. But the method is still pretty cool. The Socratic method is still relevant today because it helps us to recognize that topics are often more nuanced than what we believe at first. We often realize that when we start doing something that we didn't do before that we thought was extremely simple, and it turns out that there is a lot of complexity and it's much more challenging than we thought. That is called the Dunning-Kruger effect if you're interested in the topic. By challenging these assumptions, it forces us to move beyond dogma and question our own beliefs. Another benefit of the Socratic method, if you're into discussion, is that you will clarify since the beginning what actually you're talking about. Because in so many topics, we're having long discussions, heated discussion, and then we realize we didn't even talk about the same thing. You have a way bigger chance of having a productive discussion when you actually know what you're talking about. And I believe that we all need more Socratic method, even without a partner in discussion. When we're on social media, consider that the feed is your partner in discussion and it's going to bring you information and you're going to see all that. Use the Socratic method, challenge this information, use basic questions when you're faced with new information, such as what evidence is there to support this claim? Is there an alternative point of view? Who supports this claim? Is there an hidden agenda? This makes it much more difficult to be misled by oversimplified misinformation or emotionally charged content. So are you convinced about Socrates' argument against Meletus? And how do you usually challenge the information you encounter? Finally, do you agree that the Socratic method is still relevant in our fast-paced and digital age? Well, even if you believe that the Socratic method is still adapted for our social age, there are still other tools that we need to protect ourselves because the situation changed a lot since then. In the next video, we will discuss what is media literacy and what can it do to help us protect ourselves from misinformation in the age of internet. Media literacy takes over from the Socratic method and ensures that we have the tools and the understanding of the challenges that comes with internet. See you on the next one.